I don't know why. Hello, and welcome to Realign Journey, the unfiltered guide to self-discovery and reconnection. I'm Sierra Sambrowski, your host, and together we'll deep dive the topics that have caused us to lose touch with ourselves and explore ways to reconnect to our true self. This week, I am joined by Noelle Pinchot. Noelle is a mindset and self-discovery coach who ultimately helps people come home to themselves and live their most abundant, aligned lives. Noelle uses somatic healing, identity work, and neurolinguistic programming to help individuals strip away all that is holding them back so they can finally lean into their truest, most abundant, and aligned selves. Hi, Noelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited about this. I already told you before we started recording that I heard about somatic healing, but I know nothing about it. So do
Yeah.
you do you want to just start by telling everybody what it is that what is somatic healing? How do we use it? How did you start? Like how did you learn about this and get into all this?
Yeah, it was definitely a roundabout way for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so somatic healing is all about getting into your body, getting out of your head and getting back into your body and letting your body kind of lead you. And it's also a method in helping you really tune into your intuition. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different quick modalities that you or exercises that you probably are very aware of that you don't even realize are somatic healing is breath work,
Okay.
grounding, getting
Mm-hmm.
in nature, um, anything to regulate the nervous system, like cold exposure, dancing, sound healing. And I'm sure you've even talked to people who specialize in those different
Mm-hmm.
modalities, but
Yeah.
all of that is somatic healing as a whole.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, really, the way that I got into somatic healing is really I struggled with depression and anxiety
Okay.
all of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at age 10 already having anxiety and depression, thinking about it really stemmed from like my body image issues. But
Mm.
I think there was a deeper underlying thing going on, but it really showed up as body image issues. I remember drinking a Slim Fast at age 10, getting ready for
Oh.
middle school, drinking a Slim Fast.
Mm.
So it goes back as far as that, and I can't remember a time that I didn't struggle with, just that constant overthinking in the back of my head. Just
Mm.
always, I spent all of my life in my head,
Mm-hmm.
thinking, 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 and eventually, a few years ago, it led to me hitting sort of a rock bottom
Mm.
spiritually, emotionally, mentally, financially, all of the things. And it was after I had a breakup with my ex-boyfriend because all of this time when I had this anxiety and depression, I turned to people pleasing
Mm-hmm.
and never wanting to stir the pot in
Mm-hmm.
any situation that I
Mm.
was in. So always on my tiptoes, always anyone who knows me would say I'm super bubbly and she's so happy and nice. And that was, but inside I was like dying inside. It was
Mm-hmm.
just all a facade. And yes, that is piece like a part of who I am. I am
Mm-hmm.
bubbly and extroverted, but a lot of it was used as a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I couldn't sustain that. And what I didn't realize is that that people pleasing tendency was me operating out of a dysregulated nervous system.
Mm.
So somatic healing help is all about helping regulate your nervous system.
Okay.
So when you have a dysregulated nervous system, I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight response.
Absolutely.
Um, but then there's also the freeze and fawn response.
Correct.
And I lived in that fawn response for years and years and
Mm-hmm.
years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened is when I was going into that, like kind of entering that rock bottom period in my life, I was in freeze. Like
Mm-hmm.
my nervous system was shutting down. And what's so crazy to me that I've learned about the nervous system is that's called dorsal vagal shutdown. So
Mm-hmm.
it's literally your body preparing you to die,
Mm-hmm.
which is just mind blowing. So I was just like, I mean, vegging out any way that I could. Like I didn't even feel like I could get up out of bed. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like I had purpose. Um, I didn't want to communicate with anyone. Like I didn't want to communicate with my family because there was so much shame that came into that as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, why am I just like sitting here doing nothing? I'm lazy, I'm useless. And then you go into that shame spiral,
Sure.
which just makes it even worse.
Yeah, it's snowballing everything.
It
Mm-hmm.
snowballs. So it's just so hard to grasp yourself out of it. And luckily, I mean, and I know some people aren't lucky like this, but when I hit this rock bottom, I mean, something outside of myself was just like, okay, like you have two choices. You either, you know, stop here, you end it, like you call it, or like this is going to be this
Mm-hmm.
is going to be your purpose. This is going to be your mission. You are going to help people who struggle. And like
Mm-hmm.
it was like this outer body experience where I just knew like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out and help people one day because deep
Mm-hmm.
down that's what I always felt like I wanted to do is help other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know how I was gonna do it. But somehow I came across nervous system, nervous system regulation and somatic healing. But I didn't realize because simultaneously, what I decided to do is to just give myself grace for doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's kind of what the start of like regulating your nervous system is. It's doing nothing. And I was like already in that right before I discovered nervous system regulation and somatic healing
Yeah.
is that I was just giving myself grace for doing nothing. And just being
Yeah.
like, okay, you had a rough like life up to now, so
Yeah.
let's just chill and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that is the first step to nervous system regulation. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, let me just jump in with that because I
Yeah.
do think that I mean, and it's interesting to hear you because there's variation in our stories and yet my story of sort of my mental health journey which grew into my personal development journey which turned into my spiritual journey is very similar. So, I didn't have body issues but I can remember being deeply depressed to the point of being suicidal at like 10 and 11 years old.
Wow.
I had a perfectionistic outlook on life that I needed to be perfect. I needed to manage everything from everyone from a very young age, right? So it was maybe, and I'm sure you had some of that too, even though that might not have been like your kickoff point.
Yep.
But
Yep.
so all those things, right? And I can remember I have fortunately or unfortunately hit rock bottom multiple times in my life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think that that is the what you're saying about finding space, just allowing, accepting and allowing you to feel whatever you're feeling, be as
Mm-hmm.
motivated as you need to be motivated, that it's okay because we just
Yeah.
if I would have known that in my teens, in my 20s, in
Oh.
any of the other times that I desperately needed to know that. But it took me a long time to realize that, you know what? Even now, I'm kind of back in a cycle right now where I'm like not doing so great at allowing myself to just be
See.
and feeling like I need to like produce and do this and do that. And
Yep. Yep.
um yeah,
It's like
because
so the
yeah, the
old thought was
self-judgment
always
is
yeah, and it was
yeah.
like be perfect or like do nothing. Like I felt like if I couldn't show up perfect and like doing things like spot on,
Yeah.
spotless, then it's like don't show up at all. And
Mhm.
like battling in my brain between that was so hard.
Yeah. And for me in particular, maybe this is true for you. I'm sure it's true for people that you work with. I'm sure it's true for people that are listening. There's also this point of feeling like our worth and value has to come from what we've accomplished.
Oh,
Like the productivity of us, not necessarily, not everyone's out for accolades and awards and achieving and making seven figures and all, get in the car and like, not everybody's out for that. But it doesn't mean that they're not on some level being internally driven by how much am I producing, right? And they might
yeah.
not call it that. But that's where that self-judgment, that beating up comes from, when you are just falling out. Like, you literally cannot think straight and function
Yep.
and are in complete and total burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from the access that we have to information and what other people are doing.
Mm.
I think that sometimes we are constantly seeing what other people are achieving and what other people are doing constantly as we're scrolling through social media or
Yeah.
we're on TV, or we just have so much access to that.
Now
And
more
it's
than
so
ever.
hard.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so hard not to get wrapped up in that. It's
Mm-hmm.
so hard not to get wrapped up in that and then start doing things that you see other people are doing and you're wondering why it's not fulfilling you. But that goes back to having to stop and do nothing. And it was in that period when I stopped and I did nothing that I also took I think it was like a 2 month social media detox.
Mm.
Because I knew I just kept looking at what other people are doing and I couldn't be still and I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't stop my mind if I didn't stop looking at what other people are doing. And I think a lot of people struggle with that comparison, but
Mm-hmm.
that comparison really does is really dysregulating to the nervous
Mm-hmm.
system too.
Yeah. Well, and I personally always say that comparison really is the devil. Like, I
Oh
think
my
that
gosh.
that is the true root of all of our evil, all of our self-destruction, all of
Mm-hmm.
our sadness, depression, all the bad things that we can bring into our lives and onto ourselves comes from some level of comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. The ego gets really loud when we're
Mm-hmm.
in comparison.
Yeah. And so with the somatic healing, is there
Mhm.
specific things now, are there specific modalities that you focus on personally?
Like in my own like just like
Yeah,
for
in your
me.
practice, well, both with you
Yeah.
and with your clients. I mean, because I know some people are like big into breath work. And honestly, before we started this conversation, I didn't realize that all those other things, like sound healing and breath work and the dance
I
movement, I didn't know that was all somatic healing. I didn't know what somatic healing was exactly.
I I had a
Um,
feeling because I knew that you were into all that stuff and knew about all of that stuff. But it's funny that it just falls under that umbrella of somatic healing. But
gotcha.
what's funny is I don't focus on one specific modality.
Okay.
And the reason being is my approach is that I want that person to follow their own body, to follow their own intuition, to follow their own joy. Because ultimately getting back into your body and doing and practicing somatic healing is going back to joy. It's going
Mm,
back to, kind of like childlike wonder and experiencing, and it's all about tuning into your own body and what feels good to you. And that's kind of where I think I differ, because I try to help people find that within themselves. So like for
mhm,
example, for me, I feel completely 100% myself and alive when I am in water. Like
mm,
it I would rather an ocean, but I don't live by an ocean. But
yeah,
I do have a pool at my place. So being in water makes me feel just completely regulated and at home. So
nice.
for some people, that obviously won't be the case. But how I started to discover that was like I said, I just got really quiet and still for a while and took a break from the social media to get rid of those distractions. But I think a really good place for everyone to start is just breathing. And
Mm,
I know for a lot of people, it's like, well, how? Like, how many breaths do I take in? How long do I hold it?
because we want to
How
get it
long do I
right.
have to release it?
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where my head always used to go, because I used to actually before I did get really in tune with my body and I was just aware of somatic healing and nervous system regulation, I would like put it on a to-do list and like just make it a thing that I check off. Okay, I
That a
did the breath
girl.
work. I did a walk. I stepped outside, like,
Yeah.
and I checked it off. And then if I didn't do it, if I didn't get around to it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't check it off my to-do list. So I don't want anyone to think of somatic healing like something that they have to check off a to-do list or have to do perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the best place to start is just allow more quiet and stillness, breathe, and get outside. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the three things that you could do just to start getting more in tune with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And just and I think what it kind of starts to open the door into different modalities that might feel good to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the beginning, I didn't think shaking, like shaking out my body,
Mm-hmm.
would feel good to me. I'm like, that's not something that feel like intuitively I want to start doing is just
Feels
shaking out my
weird.
body.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. You feel like weird out doing it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of uncomfortable at first. But as I started to just, get still and do the breath work and get outside more, I started to like I'd wake up one day and like I'd just be like, ooh, like I just want to shake it out. And I'd start shaking and like that felt really good. And now I'm just very in tune with my body that, I just let it kind of lead me.
Mm-hmm.
So so yeah, I think that it's just those three things are a really good place to start, but then it's all about following your intuitive nudges.
Yeah. And it strikes me that, you know, I did have another episode where I talked with somebody else and we talked about being in our body and we talked about the programming that we get from children, like as children, about like school age, like sit down, be quiet. No, we'll tell you when you can go to the bathroom. We'll tell you now's the time you're going to eat. We'll tell you now the time you're going to play.
Yeah.
And yet, being in our bodies and listening to what our bodies are telling us is like the most primal function instinct that we have. And we have completely severed that from
Yes.
ourselves, which is why it leads to self discovery and knowing yourself, trusting yourself. People, this whole confidence thing is like a big sort of a buzz thing right now, building like be
Yeah.
more confident in your messaging, be more confident in your job, be more confident in the bedroom. I don't, like
Yeah.
confidence is like a big buzzword. I'm kind of seeing it creep up in the feeds of things lately. And it seems to me like you would be confident if you knew who you were.
Mm. Yep. Boom. That's it. That truly is it.
If
But
you
like
were
I
connected. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, connected to yourself, connected to your body, and that's why somatic healing is such a big thing in terms of discovering yourself for the very first time. Which for me, I had no idea who I was all of my life, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why when I did kind of have that breakup, I had no identity. I'm like, who even am I? Like, I have
Mm-hmm.
no idea just because I was constantly trying to keep up with what was going on around me, what other people were doing, and when I just stopped and got in tune with my body, things started really unraveling and I started to become more empowered and more confident, like you said. Like it
Mm-hmm.
is really, really connected. But what's also so interesting about somatic healing and the body is that people don't realize that our bodies get addicted to the negative cycles that we're in, so that
Mm.
when we try to switch what we're doing, sometimes it's hard to stick to. Like you might be like, "Oh yeah, I want to start doing somatic healing," and then you start practicing it, but soon, very quickly, you're going to want to go back to those old ways. And it's because your body is comfortable in the negative feelings that you've been feeling for so long and the negative cycles that you've been in for so long because your body is literally addicted to those negative hormones, whether that's adrenaline or cortisol or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to explain it like this. It's actually our mind and body connection. So when we consciously make a choice to make a change in our life, we are like all excited about it. We're like, yes, we're going to make the change. And this always goes, the best example of this is New Year's resolutions, of course.
Right.
We're like, yes, let's do this. And then you're like a week in to like sticking to it. And then all of a sudden you feel this voice inside your head say, let's skip today. Let's just skip today, right? What that is your body is feeling so unsafe because this is not familiar. So it's
Mm-hmm.
signaling to the brain, let's skip today, like let's not do it. And then the next day rolls around, and then all of a sudden you have this louder voice that is like, let's skip today. And also, why did you ever think you could make this
This
change?
is so
Like,
dumb.
this
Yeah.
is stupid. Like, come on now. Like, what are you doing? And then that just gets louder and louder. And again, it's that body signaling to the brain because it feels unsafe. It wants those negative hormones, it wants to swim in those negative hormones. So that voice just gets louder and louder, and then we self sabotage, right? We go, or what
Yeah.
we think is self sabotaging, and we go back to the regular scheduled program.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I tell people to do is that when they do consciously want to start making positive changes in their lives, is to first and foremost, you're going to have to reassure your body and affirm to yourself and your body constantly that you are safe. So, one
Mm.
thing that really, really stood out to me when I started this journey is I would wake up and immediately just feel like anxious, dread, because
Mm-hmm.
that's just how my body was used to living every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to like put my hand on my heart and I just constantly say, you are safe, you are safe, you are safe. Everything is okay. There's no rush. You don't need to be anywhere or do anything in this moment. You just need to be, you are safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to, because obviously that anxiety and rush of adrenaline, whatever it might be, when something in my um something in my environment triggered something within me subconsciously to make me feel anxious, then I would just go back to, okay, you are safe. You are safe. You are okay. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
okay. And so I think the very first step when you're making that change and you feel yourself, kind of going back into old patterns is just to remind your body that you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need that reassurance and we need that affirmation that we're safe and this is good for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that's when I recommend, okay, now get out of your comfort zone and try something out of your comfort zone. But kind of keep doing that, practicing that. I am safe. Do something to get out of your comfort zone. I am safe. Do something to get out of your comfort zone. And then eventually, it's going to be challenging at first. There's a little hump to get over, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just doing that practice to start is really, really good. And what's so amazing about it is that when you get to that other side, when you have like really programmed your body and your mind to work together, is it starts to naturally do it on its own. Like, I had an amazing experience the other day where I was driving in my car, and when I drive in my car, my mind just tends to wander. I'm like on autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
and
I'm the same.
it just starts to wander, and like it starts to go down a real negative path. I forget what it was about, but it just naturally started to go down a negative path, and
Uh-huh.
I felt like my heart rate rise, and kind of my body start to get into that fight or flight reaction. And what happened was my brain like just signaled like, no, stop, that's, you're fine, this is totally fine, and my body like regulated itself. And like, I wasn't even consciously doing it really. I was like half conscious, half not, but I saw my body and brain work together in one fell swoop. And like, that's just, I mean, it's just amazing. If you practice it, it will start to do it on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, that is amazing actually, because it is hard to believe when you go from literally waking up and feeling the anxiety wash over you as your eyes open, like, to being in a
Yeah.
different space. Because I know people that certainly wake up. I know there's people listening. I know like that they feel that anxiety and they can't even always pinpoint exactly where it comes from. Like maybe there's
Yeah.
nothing in particularly stressful going on. That's
Hmm.
just how they live. Um,
Yeah.
People listening obviously can't see you, but I can see you because we're doing video. I noticed that when you were talking about saying, telling yourself that I'm safe, that you were touching yourself. You had your
Yeah.
hand on your like over your heart center.
Yeah.
Um, but and it made me think, oh, is that something somebody should do? Like we talked about like shaking out, how that feels like such a weird and awkward thing for most of us to learn to do and
Hmm.
get ourselves to do and kind of get comfortable with. And it made me think when I saw you how I think there's a lot of people that aren't even comfortable with like touching themselves. And I don't mean like sexually. I mean just
Yeah.
literally like touching, like rubbing your own arm or putting your hand on your chest, or I don't know. So it just made me think to ask you, is that an important piece to work into also?
Oh, that's good. That's a really good question because I will say from my experience, I didn't like doing that in the beginning either. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like I would like even if I saw other people like doing when I was trying to like get into breath work and just trying to get into spaces where people were doing this work, like putting my everyone's like has their hand on their heart and seems so in tune with themselves. And I'm like, this does not feel good. This does
Mm-hmm.
not feel good at all.
Or their
But
belly, you see them a lot, they'll say like put
yeah,
your hands on your belly, one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, like.
yeah, that was actually, it's so funny that you mentioned that because that was so uncomfortable for me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really, really important though, because it's
Mm-hmm.
really important to create that relationship with ourselves. This is
Mm-hmm.
all about creating a relationship with ourselves at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the beginning, I didn't realize how important a relationship with myself was and that that's what it was all going to come down to. I didn't realize that. Um, but I knew other people were putting their hand on their heart and their belly. So I was just doing it. And at first, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel weird. It's not going to feel like you're connected with yourself in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all just like a practice to do over and over again. But now it's so crazy because I do put my hand on my heart and I just feel like love and like connection and like regulation with myself. And so that just comes over time, but
Mm-hmm.
it will feel completely silly and uncomfortable in the beginning potentially.
Yeah. But it's something that really is beneficial for people to try
Oh,
and work
yeah.
into that
Yes.
awareness. Yeah.
Yes. No,
As they start.
100%. Because I also think it like creates because they talk about like co-regulation, it's always like
Mm-hmm.
hugging someone or petting a dog or whatever that might look like. But I also think that putting your hand on your heart and like touching yourself or even hugging yourself, like that's
Mm-hmm.
giving you that same feeling of that co-regulation. And even just touching yourself like that will automatically start to bring that heart rate down and start to help you in regulating your nervous system.
Okay. Okay. That
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, that's a
good.
great question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good stuff to know. Good stuff to know for sure.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that I was thinking was, is is somatic healing equally effective? Is there a place you should start when it comes to between like mindset belief work or like emotional healing processing? Is there sort of one area that it's better in? Is there one area, one or the other, that you should kind of start with? And I guess part of why I think that is because having, had the conversation about how disconnected we are from our body, chances are you're very disconnected from your emotions. So sometimes you may not even be able to say, oh, I need this to process emotions, but you'll know that you have a mindset issue, that you just repeatedly feel like you can never do anything right. Let's just use
Yeah.
that one,
Yeah.
right? And so, can you use the somatic healing to help with kind of the mindset issue, which then takes you to the emotional releasing that helps actually heal the mindset issue? Or do you need to kind of focus on, I know I have mindset issues, but let's start the somatic healing practices so we can move the emotion so we can fix the mindset? Because that really is how it actually works anyway. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely so I used to be I guess I was kind of like toxic positivity type of
mm-hmm,
person
mm-hmm,
where I was like reading all the personal development books. I was doing all the mindset things. I was doing everything and nothing was working. I still
yeah,
felt anxious and depressed and like I was putting on this facade and it just didn't feel natural.
yeah,
Then I hit the rock bottom and then I went into somatic healing. And I think that has to come before the mindset because it
I agree.
allows space,
Hmm.
it allows connection with yourself, it allows space. And
Hmm.
also part of somatic healing is releasing, and it's
Absolutely.
releasing like the stored negativity and the stored emotions that are in your body that aren't, serving you. So
Yeah,
you almost don't have space for all this good stuff you're trying to bring
you
in,
definitely
right?
do not. Yes.
Yeah. So you have to release that. So I think at the end of the day, and this might be a bold statement, but like at the end of the day, before you move forward in anything in your life, you need to be somatically in tune with your body. You need to have that connection with yourself, and you need to allow your nervous system to regulate before you move forward. So if you're like thinking about like making a big change in your life, or you're kind of stuck and you're like, should I quit my job and start a business,
Mhm.
or what,
Or you're in the
anything big
middle
in
of
your
a
life.
big change, whatever, because that's usually a
Yeah,
catalyst. Yeah.
regulate your nervous system first, because you will have more clarity and you will start to find answers more readily.
Hmm.
Because I will say I have done so much with my mind. I've done therapy and like I said, all the personal development stuff.
Hmm.
Nothing moved and nothing changed until I started somatic healing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's kind of part of why I was asking was I was curious if I was off the mark about it because I too have had all kinds of therapy multiple times, tons
Yeah.
of personal development. At this stage of my life, I've tried all kinds of other like energetic healing and other types of spiritual healing modalities. But when I go in, even when I was intending to work on kind of mindset belief stuff, I had to do that emotional clearing, whether I was consciously doing
Mhm.
it, energetically doing it. Like, I'm a big fan of saying talk therapy doesn't always work for everyone. You may not be in a space where talk therapy is going to be effective for you. Maybe
Yeah.
talk therapy is only going to take you so far. I don't believe we have to remember every memory. I don't believe we have to know all the reasons why we're carrying around so much anger or so much guilt or so much shame,
Yes.
but your body knows. Your
Yes.
body and your energy system knows. And it's exactly like you said. I just got chills. I just gave myself chills. Um, if we do not make space by releasing those emotions, by getting rid of it, then how the hell are you supposed to take on new mindsets and new habits? How?
Right.
You got no
Right.
space.
Nope. Nope. I always say it's about the stripping away. It's about the stripping away to make room for the new.
Mhm.
And that has to do, like you said, whether it's emotionally or energetically, or whatever that looks like for you, you have to strip away before you bring in the new and make space
Mhm.
for the new. Because if not, you're going to bring in some of the new and you're going to hold on to some of it, but it's just going to be like fighting all this old stuff
Yeah.
inside of you, and it's
Yeah.
just not going to flow. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
There's going to be friction. It's not going to feel easy. It's going to feel hard. Um, so yeah,
Agreed.
1000%.
Hmm. What's one practice? I know you already said about like practice getting still and telling yourself safe, but what's another really easy practice that you can leave everyone with that has been really effective for connecting to your body and your inner self?
Yeah. This might sound too simple,
Never.
but at the end of the day, just go outside and go on a walk.
Yeah, just move your body that way and be in nature.
Seriously, yeah, or put your feet in the grass.
Hmm. Yeah, that's me.
And
I'm that
and
person.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
nature person.
Um One thing that you can do though, I'll leave this one here, because it's something that you could do when you're actually, let's say you're in a group of people and you're feeling really dysregulated and
Ooh,
emotions
this is
start
good.
coming up
Yeah.
and you feel anxious.
Uh-huh.
And you obviously like you can't leave, but you're like, I feel so uncomfortable. Do this five senses exercise.
Okay.
So you, and no one even has to know you're doing it. So
Right.
just
Yeah.
think of What are 5 things I see right now? And just look around and pick 5 different things that you see. What are 4 different things that you hear right now? And then in your mind, just pick out 4 different things that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
What are 3 different things that you feel right now? You know, the feeling of your pants on your legs, the air from the air conditioner. What are 2 different things that you smell right now? And then what's the one thing that you taste right now? And you could literally just do that when you're sitting in a room with people and you're feeling dysregulated. It just brings you back down to earth. It gets you out of your head and into your body and you don't even realize it.
Mm,
But it's just super, super simple. So
yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's really great, actually. I've not heard that, to be
yeah,
honest. So,
because
yes.
I had a client who she's like, sometimes I'm when I'm around my kids, I don't want them to see me get like if I'm in the middle of like a trigger and I'm getting worked up. It's like, what could I do? So I gave her that and it really worked for her.
Yeah. Yeah, like an office meeting,
An
anything, right?
office
A
meeting.
social
That's like where I
gathering,
always
family
picture, yeah.
reunion, like,
Family reunion, yes.
right. Well, Noelle, thank you so much for being here with me today, for leaving us
Yes.
with a great tip and all of the great tips that you gave. How can people find you? How can they connect with you, work with you, all that jazz?
Yeah. So the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. I'm currently working on all my branding and website and stuff, but Instagram, you can just go ahead and follow me and I post all these tips all the time. So it's full
Awesome.
of educational information and you can just slide in my DMs and I'd be happy to chat with you.
Okay. What's your Instagram handle? Is it just your
It's
name?
it's my name, Noelle Pinchot Coaching. So
Okay.
my full name and then coaching at the end.
Okay. Very good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again for being here. Thank you to all of everyone that is listening, that tunes in. We hope you found some really great nuggets this week. Please continue to follow Realign Journey and help find yourself ways to reconnect. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week.